county police that they have faced anything yet that has looked like a loss of control.
John Sudworth there on the ground in Los Angeles. We thank you very much for your reporting. We can cross over now to retired Major General Randy Manor. He was the acting Vice Chief of the National Guard Bureau during the Obama administration. Welcome to you. Very good to have you with us on the program. I'd just like to begin by getting your thoughts on this day. We have seen the large part of that parade celebrating 250 years since the founding of the armed forces. We've had comments from the president. Your thoughts?
I've actually stood in Red Square in Moscow. I've stood in Tiananmen Square in China, and I've stood in North Korea on the edge of the DMZ. It is absolutely wrong for the United States to have this show of might the way that all those dictatorships have. Our soldiers are quiet professionals. We know what we are capable of and what we do. And to put them on display in this manner is nothing more than a public display to remind people to be quiet, not question the government or its leaders, the same as the other dictatorships. I am absolutely opposed to such a large parade of this scale. It's not a good use of taxpayer money.
Major General, many people say that the president was inspired by the scenes that he saw on the Champs-Élysées with President Macron back in 2017. The president said in his speech himself that America should celebrate its victories. Veterans should feel celebrated. What do you make of that?
We have always celebrated the Army birthday. I have celebrated in combat zones. I've celebrated at bases across the United States. I've celebrated in the Pentagon. I've celebrated it in the field. It is something where we get cake. We basically have a few speeches. We have the most junior soldier and the most senior, the oldest soldier come forward, and we acknowledge them and we partake in storytelling. It is a way that we celebrate our history, our heritage, and it is very, very low key. And it is a tradition that we have had for decades that I have served in our military. This idea of this huge rollout of armor and of helicopters is not what we do. I was actually in a parade of about 14,000 soldiers when I was lieutenant. The soldiers can't stand it. You practice, you practice, you practice. It's not a good use of their time. It's not a good use of taxpayer money. There's no reason to do this, and it's only because the president is doing it because it makes him feel good.
I wanted to ask you about the scenes that we're currently seeing unfold in Los Angeles, and indeed we have seen all week with the deployment of Marines on the ground. Those protests continue at the same very time that this parade has been going on in Washington, D.C. It is a split screen, literally and metaphorically. What do you make of that?
Well, first of all, I want to congratulate the Los Angeles police for doing such a great job out there, and for the mayor and for the governor. This is a law enforcement operation, not a military operation. I've been involved with many, many deployments of where guardsmen have been used to augment the police forces in behind the scenes operations at the request of governors. It is very common. This is the first time while I served on active duty. And as you know, the first time ever since President Johnson sent the National Guard in a federal status to protect the protesters on their march to Selma, Alabama. This is something where First Amendment rights are being squashed and trampled by the president and by the administration. The federal government is stomping all over states' rights. It doesn't matter whether our listeners are from rural counties or from, meaning red, or from blue. These are not what makes America great. It's the opposite of it. We all want to get along, respect each other, respect law and order, of course. Violent offenders should be detained. For peaceful protests, though, intimidation and escalation is not the way. And most importantly, the U.S. Army and the military is not supposed to be on the streets of our country. That is not what we are trained to do, and that is absolutely wrong.
Retired Major General Randy Manor, who was the acting Vice Chief of the National Guard Bureau during the Obama administration. We thank you for your thoughts and for being with us.